Hey, what's up? It's the Pangolin here, back with another video, and today we're discussing Arcane Season 2, Act 2. I did an intro last week for Arcane, so go check out my Act 1 video if you haven't seen it, but let's just get straight into Act 2. And like last week, I'm just going to jump all over, and there will be spoilers for everything in Arcane so far, but no lore spoilers, as I have never and will never play League, so I don't know anything about the lore, and please don't spoil it in the comments. With that being said, let's go. First of all, what an act. Act 1 was good. It was a bit, getting back into it. The pacing was a little bit iffy. It started to get better and better. But like I said last week, the first act is rarely the strongest. And this middle act here, it definitely upped the ante. Like, the feeling I had after the end of episode 6 was just ridiculous. That just might be the best episode of the entire show so far, but we'll get to that. Just to start off at the beginning though, that Paint the Town Blue song was a fire song to start off the act. I said last week I was a bit iffy on the music choices, but that one I really liked. I honestly really liked. I'm gonna have to go check out that song just on Spotify or something. But in general, I thought the music choices were a little bit better this week. Last week was a little, all over the place. Caitlyn with that Maddie girl though was just out of nowhere, not gonna lie. I think it's realistic because she's gonna have her little rebound thing, but I don't know. I just didn't really need to see that. But I know people are gonna hate on that Maddie girl heavy. I bet it's all over the internet already. But the burly dude who was with Vi didn't say a word. He was in this batch for about 30 seconds max, bro. He just showed up in the little music video sequence they did, just being there looking over her. I'm surprised he was that attached to her. I feel like there's got to be more going on with him than what we've seen because he's super attached to her super easily. But then he just disappeared. So I don't know what's going on with that. If he doesn't show back up, I think that's a weird loose thread. No surprise though, like we were talking about last week, that the Shimmer Spammer, and the Shimmer Spammer is I forget his name honestly even right now. It's the guy who was working on Vander's body. But the Shimmer Spammer, that's what I like to call him. There's no surprise he was working on Vander's body. They weren't exactly subtle about that. But I thought it was nice for him to get some backstory though. I think the show is generally pretty good about fleshing out as many characters as possible, especially given the runtime of the show, which is around 40 minutes pretty strictly. So it was cool to see he has this girl he cares for that I think is dead or is maybe on the brink of death, and he's hoping he can figure out some way to bring her back, and he thinks his work on Vander is the way. I don't know, but that was cool to see some backstory there and see he actually has some humanity in him. But the Vander sequence where he's tracking his blood and he's trying to find him, and that just after the whole rally at the Vander statue, and then they get rounded up by the enforcers and they go into prison, and Vander tracking them to the prison was super well built up. Like the tension, the suspense in that moment, Vander making his way slowly making his way there, the art direction of that, and then he shows up, he runs through Ambessa, and then he pulls up and he finds Jinx, and Jinx is protecting Isha, and she's like, get out of here, and then she 1v1s Jinx. That 1v1 was wild. Like, she held her own way better than I thought she would. I don't know how Ambessa survived. It was barely a scratch though. I guess he wasn't too interested and just ran through and ran past her. But in terms of the actual fight with Jinx, that was crazy. And the way they had their reunion at the end of the episode, that was a wild cliffhanger, but I thought it was really well done, honestly. That's one of the better moments of the act. I'm surprised Vi and Jinx reconciled so easily though at the beginning of the next episode, but I guess Vander is the only person who could really achieve that. They came back together, and clearly you could see that Vi, no matter what she was saying all this time, she really does want to see the best in Jinx, and Jinx wants to see the best in Vi as well. As you see, the Enforcer Vi was very short-lived, as I was predicting, and they work it out. They had that whole time where they're going through the caves looking for Vander, and they get to work that out, and Isha's kind of bringing them together, and you really see that they still want to see the best in each other. But back to episode 6 though, just because I'm sure this is what you're all here for. Episode 6 is just ridiculous. One of the best episodes of TV I've seen this year, and there have been some really good shows this year, and I think it's honestly the best episode of Arcane. I gotta rewatch season 1. Maybe episode 9 was better, but it's definitely up there. It's at least top 2. But the sequence where they betrayed Ambessa was dope. Like Caitlyn and Vi their reconciliation, and you don't see it. It gets kind of off screen, and then they are pulling the whole ruse. I thought it was a bit predictable, but I thought the execution was well done, which is what really matters. I will say though, Caitlyn and Vi was another reconciliation that was rather quick, in my opinion. Maybe it didn't take much because they didn't really hate each other in the first place, but if you really think about it, they kind of just came back together within 30 seconds, a minute. So take from that what you will, but moving on from that, I need to know what Jace is up to. Jace has been just lurking the whole episode. Clearly something's not right with him based on the experience that he had from the first act, and it seems like he's sold. I think on the surface they want you to believe that this dude is just wild, he's off the rails, and he just messed everything up, which in the short term it does seem like he messed everything up. We were very close to things going well. He came, killed Victor, and all hell broke loose. But in reality, maybe he actually clutched. So we need to know what's up with Echo and the professor. Like, that explanation I assume is going to happen in the third act, but I'm betting that they know things that meant that Jace really saved the day, but it just looks wrong without that info. So I'm curious about where that's going and what that actually means. I'm sure it has something to do with the Arcane and all the wild runes, and maybe Victor's cult look good on the surface, but there's only so much there, some sinister undertones that maybe even Victor was unaware of. I'm curious about where that's going to go, but we'll see in the next act, hopefully. And speaking of Victor, I'm not exactly sure how much time passed between Act 1 and Act 2. It's definitely at least a few months, I'm guessing. But of course, his following has grown a ton. You know, he's on his Lisana Gaib arc, like I was mentioning last week, and as you can see, he at least has some kind of cult following already, so that's as expected. But he was looking more and more like the sorcerer guy that I was mentioning last week. The guy who saved Jace in his youth. But he got cooked, so that theory's kind of dead, I guess. I don't know if he's really dead or if he's going to stay dead next week, but we'll see about that. But we didn't really get the explanation for the wild runes and the Arcane that I was hoping for, except for maybe the humanity stuff that Victor was saying at the end, like that monologue at the end. I'm guessing it'll all come together in the final act, like I mentioned. But I believe in the writing of the show, so, you know, especially after episode 6, I'm going to hope that they can bring it all together. Caitlyn and Jinx, though, on the same side, I did not expect. Caitlyn and Vi, okay, it's a bit quick, but fair enough. They really, at the end of the day, they probably still love each other. Vi and Jinx, still, I thought that was a bit quick, but at the end of the day, deep down, they still love each other. They're still sisters. Caitlyn and Jinx, though, never really cared for each other, never loved each other, not on the same side, really, ever. And it didn't take much for them to be like, okay, we're strapping in, we're backing Vi, and we're going to go protect Vander. I guess this is just the inner good of Caitlyn, knowing that's the right thing to do. And obviously, Jinx is going to back Vander no matter what. So, but I just didn't expect. I honestly wouldn't have been surprised. There was one moment where like they're walking out of the tent, and they're behind, I think it was Vi or someone. They're behind someone, and literally Jinx not paying any attention to Caitlyn. I thought Caitlyn would have just pulled out the sniper, pow, just popped her in the head. Like, really, I thought she hated her like that. But I guess she's able to look past things for a certain moment. The Vander backstory with Silco and their mom, and it's not really on the topic of what I'm just talking about, but Silco and then Vi and Jinx's mom. It was cool seeing their mom, you know, of course, that she has purple hair and they have blue and the pink hairs, you know, of course. But it was actually so unfortunate that Vander and Silco could have avoided all the conflict. It just really took one letter getting to Silco that could have made all the difference, but you know, it never got to him, I guess. That's really unfortunate, and it just shows how the entire story is just one domino effect of tragedy, which of course leads to the end of this episode where it's rest in peace Isha. That was devastating, but it was just so beautifully done. I can't even be mad at it. I will say it's inevitable though, because she was acting more and more recklessly the entire act. She just thought she was untouchable or something and moving like Jinx. And I think it was only a matter of time before she died. But this one was less reckless and more, she knew she was making a sacrifice for the team. So she went out like a hero, but that was really tough to watch. And, you know, Jinx lost Isha and Vander in one go. I'm not sure if Vander's going to be dead from that, but at least on the surface, she lost Isha and Vander in one go. We were so close to having things go in a good direction so close. Like everything was tying together. All the main parties were on the same side, the parties that you really want to see on the same side. But of course, it's only Act 2, so everything went to hell as expected. And we're gonna have to see what happens in Act 3 to wrap it back up and make things go in a better direction. That's if they want to have a good ending. It might just be a tragic ending like the rest of the show, but it's gonna be hard for Jinx to come back from the dark side now. So really, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a tragic ending. The whole thing is just as tragic as it can be, and it's just a series of unfortunate events. But no idea what's going on with Mel, though. I mean, I get like it's Black Rose stuff, but that's some of the least explored stuff of the show. So we're gonna see where that goes and how that gets developed. I think it does have something to do with the theory that she has some special abilities that saved her and Jace from the missile in episode 1. That's my theory, at least. I'm sure others share that theory. But, we're waiting for that explanation still. And I'm assuming he's going to have to come back to Piltover at some point to wrap this whole thing up. Get all the parties back in one spot. Some hiccups I thought this act had, though. They are spamming the music video exposition sequences. I don't remember if they did it this much in season 1. I don't mind them, but I think they could have just made the episodes longer, too. I know it's an artistic choice, but maybe they were constrained to being around 40 minutes. But I think the runtime, another thing with the runtime is that they do off-screen some stuff that I thought they'd show. They do mostly do well with the show don't tell, but it seems minor. I just think the small changes with showing a couple more things to cement these character motivations could have elevated the season to another level. Not to saying it's not going to. The Act 3 might just be so mind-blowing that it makes you look past all these minor hiccups. But I do think generally, if they just push the show to 50 minutes, 55 minutes, you don't have to go to an hour necessarily. Maybe not even that long. Maybe it's just little things that would take the show to about like 48 minutes. I think they could really cement some of these character arcs and then just make the whole thing seem more cohesive. I don't think it's as much of a pacing issue as people are saying, and more just like these little things that are missing to make things make more sense, rather than just assuming things happen and then people show up and do things. You're like, oh, that was kind of, sudden, abrupt, but, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that this is happening. Overall thoughts, though, I think the show is really picking up as expected, and I'm really expecting for them to stick the landing. If they fumble this landing, I'm going to be devastated. Like, this will be a generational throw, because expectations were on the floor for a League of Legends show. They exceeded by a mile everyone's expectations. Now expectations are through the roof. And if they fumble the landing, I think it's going to be tough. It's really going to be tough. And I'm sure they're going to do more Arcane. Not like this story, but stuff in the universe in the future. So they're really going to have to stick this landing to give people hope for those future iterations. It's gone in some directions I didn't expect, though. But that has me leaning in for whatever they're cooking for the finale. Like, I like that they've thrown off some of my predictions, some of my dynamics. I'm really curious to see where it's going to go. And, I will be there no matter what. But thanks for watching, especially if you made it this far. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on Season 2 so far, and any predictions you have for the final act of Arcane. I can't believe it's almost over. If you have even 5 seconds to spare, it'd help a lot if you'd liked, subscribed, and all the other good stuff. There should be a new video out same time next week. See ya.